Bol-News on the NCR channel is presented by the Pinewood Nainital.
Hello and welcome to BNHAF, that is Bol-News Hybrid Awards Festival. Today we have with us a very young, dynamic personality, actress, writer, and educator, Catherine Talton. I'll welcome you with a very Indian way. Namaste.
Namaste, thank you.
So, Catherine, introduce yourself to the audiences of BNHAF Awards Festival.
Well, again, thank you for having me. And I'm an actress first. I started out young out of, I guess, since I was a child, I've been doing plays and always loved telling stories, always loved performing, singing songs. And I realized that I wanted to study theater in university. So I went to UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles, and studied theater and storytelling. And it was a very well-rounded program that taught us from lighting to costumes. I had to sew the costumes. You have to, saw and drill the sets. And so it was really a well-rounded curriculum, and went on to perform after college, Shakespeare. Shakespeare's always been a big love of mine. So went on to do a few productions in Los Angeles, doing that, and then studied in London for a bit, doing Shakespeare at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. So continued that training. And so I have a very theatrical training. And but I've always done film as well along the way, usually fun projects that people just wanted to collaborate on. And that's really, in my opinion, is kind of where it starts. If you want to tell a story, if you have a story to tell, and everyone has a story to tell, right? Then find a way to tell it. Find other people that you can work with who want to also tell the story. And that's the beautiful thing about being artists and working together, is that collaboration and that ensemble. So I take that sort of theatrical background of ensemble and working together with me into the film world and the sort of on-screen world. There's still that very collaborative spirit. A film doesn't get made unless there are many people working and we all fit together. So there's that. And then as an educator, I studied I lived in Italy for a bit, and I did a few commercial projects there, and then came to New York and studied educational theater, and got a master's in that, and then went on to teach in the New York City public schools, using the arts as a way to help underserved populations in the inner city. Again, art is a very therapeutic way to express ourselves and to heal, right? So that was a very good experience. And then now I'm a professor of theater and speech, public speaking, at 2 universities in New York City. And so I use sort of all my skills, my artistic skills and my education skills, and I use them for all my work in that sense. So that was a long introduction, sorry.
No, that's not a long introduction. That's a strong body of work. You have done a lot and you have put it in such few words, but it's amazing. It's very inspiring for all the people who are watching this show.
Oh, that's kind. Thank you.
Welcome. So you were a student of UCLA, and probably during the time when you were a student at UCLA, there were not much of film school happening on the internet, on the digital domain.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
Today you have all the videos, all the film schools on the digital domain, on YouTube and on other video sharing platforms. So what do you think? Probably if you had these digital domains on filmmaking, would you have still joined UCLA, or would you have preferred the YouTube film school?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. I think because my emphasis at that time was theater, I probably still would have studied and worked in that capacity. But I have to say, I myself am just blown away by how much power we have now. I've been in the industry a while. You said I'm young, and I really appreciate that, but I'm not that young. and when I started, there wasn't the digital platforms of sending your auditions, of taping yourself, et cetera, et cetera. You could tape yourself, but it was a bit more of a process. And so I have to say, young people and artists now have an incredible advantage in being able to create their own work immediately, edit it immediately, and put it forth immediately. And so you kind of can skip all the agents and the bureaucracy of that world and tell your story and create your art. So that's a really great question. And in some ways, I think, yeah, maybe I would have skipped school if I just wanted to do film, because in the end, it's just about doing the work. The more you do it, the better you get, the more you meet people that you want to collaborate with. So I don't know if I answered that question exactly. I'm a bit torn because I did enjoy school, but maybe I would have skipped it. Maybe I would have.
Now, I'll tell you from my experience, during the lockdown, when everything was closed and we weren't allowed to move out of the house in India. I don't know how it was there, but in India, we weren't allowed to move out from the house. So what I did was, I in fact taught myself editing, just watching the YouTube videos during the lockdown. And when my editor saw the end product, he was like, "My God, you're an editor now."
And so I completely hear you, though, because I think we were all forced to stop and sort of learn new skills. And I think that is maybe the only advantage of the lockdown, but the fact that, like you said, you now have the power to edit and learn and skip that and do it yourself. Likewise, I now set up my own lights. I have to film. I have to edit my own auditions. So again, we have a lot of power and a lot of capability. And all the people listening to this, you can tell your stories, and it's very exciting. It's very exciting that all you really need is a phone. Yes, that's all you need.
Yes.
Yeah, good. That's good.
So you have been an actress, you have been a writer, you have been an educator, you are an aspiring filmmaker. Of all the four vocations, which one is your favorite and why?
Oh, that's a hard question, Amit. What's my favorite? That's really hard. I mean, I want to say acting has always been my number one, and that's what got me started with everything. Although I always enjoyed writing, free writing. I think it's hard for me to say because they all have their place and their importance. The wonderful thing about writing is that, again, the power is yours. You're able to tell the story. As an actor, it's a beautiful profession, but you very much have to take in the input of other people, the director, the writer. You have to use the words that are on the page. And sometimes even producers and people get involved in what you are supposed to do creatively. Whereas as a writer, you can kind of, you dictate the story. But that being said about acting, I still love it. I think it's still my number one passion. I love collaborating with other people, fortunately. So that works for me, and then sometimes having a conversation about, okay, I see what you're saying. You want the character to go in this direction. How about if we try it this way? And so really, taking in all the input and then coming up with something together. Like I said before, ensemble and working together and collaboration is really important to me. Same thing when I'm teaching a class. I want all my students to contribute, and their input is as important as mine. So that collaborative spirit when it comes to acting is still my number one. And transforming and living a different life is really, really fun.
Perfect. What do you teach, and what are your students like?
I teach theater history. I teach introduction to theater. I teach acting once in a while, and I teach public speaking. And public speaking in the sense of overcoming from the very basics. How do I do a presentation in front of people in general? So really acquiring the skills to get in front of people, get over stage fright, communicate in a clear way what your points are, and making your argument heard. So my students like to, I don't know, I really love to teach theater history. I do a global perspective, and I really love to teach students about how we as human beings are storytellers. And so sort of breaking down the walls of this country and that country and them and us, and sort of seeing the humanity of the art, and acknowledging the differences and how they're interesting and strong and beautiful, from Sanskrit, classical Sanskrit theater to Shakespearean theater to, the Venetian theater. So we study theater from around the world, and my students enjoy that. They really enjoy sort of traveling not only in the past but around the world, and learning more about other cultures, learning about what's important in terms of religion, because that is really where storytelling and theater came from, is religion. And so there's sort of that perspective that comes into just learning about plays and human storytelling in that way. And again, there's that collective coming together with song and dance and writing and gesture and all of it. So I love that, and my students love that. I think that it's fun.
Now, since you teach theater history, I can't resist asking you. You must be teaching Greek theater, Persian theater, and of course Indian theater, because these three theater forms are the oldest in the world. So,
exactly.
So did you do a research on Indian theater? Have you studied Indian theater? And what is it that fascinates you about Indian theater?
Thank you for that question. Yes, I teach all those forms. It's a survey class, so I will never say I'm an expert in Indian theater and Sanskrit theater, classical Indian dance theater, but I have studied it a bit, and I do expose my students to the history. And I think I really love, I love the use of gesture and dance. Dance is so important it's basically what it is, right? So much of it is dance, so much of it, the costumes are gorgeous, the colors that are used are gorgeous. I have to say, in terms of technique, as an actor, I am so incredibly impressed by the facial expressions and the eye movements, and how, a twitch of the mouth or the eyes looking in a certain direction imparts an entire conversation basically to the audience about pity, fear, jealousy, whatever those gestures represent. And the amount of time that these families or dance companies take, children, I mean, they teach it from childhood, onwards. So just the amount of technique involved is very impressive. And you don't see that, in the US. People in the US some of them don't even train. So for me, that's very impressive, and I really respect it a lot. And it's beautiful storytelling. It's really beautiful storytelling.
So have you read any Indian plays? Have you studied Kalidas, or have you read Shakuntala?
Yes, of course. Of course. I love Shakuntala. I do teach a bit of Kalidas as well. So yes. And yes, I love it. My students love it. I show we read a couple different versions. Sometimes I show different clips of different interpretations of Shakuntala, because there have been so many. And so yes, absolutely.
Bol-News on the NCR channel is presented by the Pinewood Nainital.